Imagine if your precious family heirlooms and even the remains of your ancestors were stolen and put on display in a museum overseas. During colonisation, thousands of Australian Aboriginal artefacts and even human remains were taken from country and transported around the world, with many ending up in private collections. We know this because between 2016 and 2019, a research group identified some 38,400 Indigenous Australian objects spread across museums throughout the United Kingdom. In fact, the British Museum hosts the largest collection of works in the world and has been well known for its stubborn stance on the repatriation of stolen artefacts. However, on a positive note for First Nations people around Australia, last month the ancestral remains of a young Tasmanian Aboriginal man were returned to the traditional owners from the University of Aberdeen in Scotland. The skull of the man was purchased by the University of Aberdeen in 1852, labelled native of Van Diemen's Land, who was shot on the Shannon River. The man was a member of the Big River tribe in Tasmania, who were completely wiped out with no direct descendants remaining. It is believed that the remains of the man were taken in the 1820s or 1830s, during a time when the trade of Indigenous artefacts and remain was commonplace. The skull, along with the shell necklace from the Bass Strait Islands, were returned freely by the Scottish University after they were approached on the matter in 2019. After 173 years abroad, they were delivered to delegates from the Tasmanian Aboriginal Centre, and the remains will soon be buried on country with a traditional Aboriginal ceremony. This repatriation is just one of many efforts being made by traditional owners around Australia to return what was stolen during the colonial period. The Australian Institute of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander Studies has received a federal grant to lead a Return of Cultural Heritage program focusing on international repatriation. Just last year, the famous Squeagle spears were returned to the La Perouse Aboriginal community of Botany Bay. These spears were first taken by James Cook and Joseph Banks in 1770 during their first voyage to Australia. Given to the Trinity College of Cambridge, it took 253 years for the 4 remaining spears to make their way back to country. The Squeagle shield, another artefact taken by James Cook in 1770, is still being held at the British Museum, who have refused its repatriation. There are often debates between museums and foreign nations as to the ownership of artefacts, especially as their acquisition was often under dubious circumstances. However, in the case of Australia's Indigenous artefacts, there is little to disprove that they were not stolen or illegally obtained. Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander artefacts not currently in traditional owner possession should be returned, and their display for the purposes of education or awareness should be at the discretion of their true owners. We need a National Indigenous Australian Museum owned and operated by First Nations, which would provide an excellent opportunity for empowerment and education. These artefacts are a legacy of the colonial plundering of Indigenous peoples, and their repatriation would be a powerful show of international reconciliation. Thanks for watching this week's Paint It Black with me, Emma Garlett. Don't forget to subscribe so you never miss an episode.